SJ2000 review was one of the big hits of 2013, coming in about the middle of the year. When I'd done that review, people spotted the SJ2000 popping up on eBay after a couple of months, suggested I should have a look at it. Well, I was a bit dubious because I don't see that there's anything stopping somebody coming out with an SJ1010 camera, just badging anything up with a number, pretending it's the follow-up. But just to be sure, I picked the SJ2000 up. And here's the box for it. It's a waterproof camera, kind of bullet-shaped helmet thing, H.264 MOV. Here's some specs on the back that you can have a look at. But it's your usual kind of helmet camera type design, although you could attach it to other things, of course, as well. Let's have a look inside the box, see exactly what we get in here. Going to go through it pretty quickly. We've got the USB charger and lead, a cleaning cloth, a kind of plastic mount that holds the camera. That attaches to that if you want it to attach it to handlebars, or you could attach it to this clip instead, which has belt holes on it, but you could also attach it to a tripod screw on the bottom, or if you wanted to sticky back pads. This Velcro loop mount has a sticky back part on the bottom that attaches to your helmet. The top part comes off. I'll show you that in a moment. There's a bag with some straps in it. I didn't go into that. I don't plan on strapping the camera to anything. There's a little bag with some spare screws and things in there which might come in handy. On the back of the camera you can remove the cap off it, replace it with this one with a hole in it to let the sound in. But if you want to keep it waterproof, use the other one. There's also some silica gel type stuff to keep it waterproof, as well as some additional rubber seals. Now there's an instruction booklet which has nice photos in there, as well as decent information, as well as a booklet all about the mounting options, which is a nice addition. It tells you how to attach it to things and shows you with step-by-step photos, which is a nice touch. Now the camera itself, of course, is the last thing in the box. We'll just have a look at that. Not really much to say about this, not much to point out. All there is one button on the top, which is a rubberized button. When you hold that one down, the camera will vibrate, and it also makes a very quiet sound, the same sounds as the SJ1000. It also flashes when it's recording, and it stays solid blue when it's on standby, and if you hold it down it will vibrate again and flash, and that's when it switches off. Now if I just remove the cap off the back, it's screwed on tightly. Can't imagine any water would get inside this. Obviously it's not supposed to either. Now if we look at the back of the camera, starting at the top left corner, going around clockwise, we've got a switch there to switch between photo and video, a microphone hole with a microphone at the bottom. It's not a socket for a cable, that one. USB plug socket, 1080p 720p switch, battery at the bottom, micro SD card slot on the left there. By the way, when you take photos, it takes a load of photos one after the other, not just one. Now if we look at the battery here, I got 2 hours 20 minutes out of one charge on that one, but notice on there it says SJ2000, which backs up the story that maybe this is the follow-up or brother or sister to the SJ1000 camera. That and the fact that the sound effects the camera makes are the same as well. I'll just show you how a few of these mounting things could work. You've got the camera in this one here. It's got a sticky back part under that white sticker there, which remains on the thing you're attaching it to. The other part comes away. I'll show you that on my motorcycle helmet in a moment. The camera is held nice and firmly, surprisingly, with these loops here. It doesn't roll about. Then you could put it in this one if you wanted, in that loop at the top. It's got a sort of GoPro type system in a way, where you've got the springy legs that go inside this plastic part here and click in there. Hold it nice and firm, but it is a little bit tall, I think. It could vibrate a bit. You can put straps through there, sticky back bit on the bottom, or attach it to a tripod screw mount. Alternatively, you could keep it in that part and put the other bit on your bicycle handlebars and click it on like that. Again, very tall, it would vibrate a lot. Now here's what it looks like on my motorcycle. This part is all sort of Velcro, sticky stuff, attaches to that. That's the scratchy end in my hand, and then the fluffy bit on the motorcycle helmet. But it felt a little bit wobbly, because a bike helmet, of course, has a curve on it, as all helmets do. It's not lying flat to it, so I put a bit of sticky tape on there, a bit of duct tape to make sure it didn't fall off while I was out and about. Switched it on and then went out on the motorcycle. So let's have a look at some of that stuff. You'll notice on this shot that I've got the camera twisted around slightly. That's an unfortunate side effect of these barrel-shaped cameras, that it's very hard to get them pointing straight. The sound that you were listening to was the sound with the waterproof cap in place. I tried the cap with the hole in it, which is supposed to let more sound through. It just let a load of wind noise through, which made a deafening roar. But ignoring the sound, you can see the pictures are nice and clear. That sky is perhaps a little bit too blue, maybe a bit over the top, but it looks nice anyway. Everything is nice and sharp and bright. Let's take it out round Manchester now, just shoot some sights as I'm out and about, see what we can see. Looks nice and clear again. Pay special attention to the edges of the lens here, how things are still sharp right at the corners. You don't get that on every camera, they get a bit soft towards the edges. It's supposed to have a 170-degree lens on this camera. I'm not too sure whether it's got it that wide, but it's certainly a wide angle lens, although it doesn't seem to have too much barrel distortion on it at all. As you can see on this shot here, nice and clear, you can see all the way across. Everything looks very nice, as good as pretty much most of these cameras I've tested. So the sound isn't anything to write home about, but it's okay. In the dark of the printworks here, you can see the camera does a pretty decent job. It doesn't try to gain everything up, it just records it as it sees it. A little bit of grain in the picture, but overall a pretty decent performance. Now, looking at the files that come off the camera, they're H.264 MOV files. In 1080p it records at about 15.5 megabits a second, but that's a variable bitrate, can go up and down a little bit. 10 minutes of that 1080p video will be about 1.22 gigs. The camera records in 10-minute segments, by the way, if you leave it recording continuously. One thing I should mention is the 720p mode only records at 720p 60, but it's actually 30 frames a second with each one duplicated. Now, anyone who's familiar with my videos will know that there must be something wrong here, because this video is too short if the camera is actually any good. And yes, you're right, there is a bit of a problem. I'll explain more in a minute. But on a longer video, I'll go into things like how to set the time, whether it can be used as a car camera, things like that. Not going to do that here, and this is why. The camera isn't any good at coping with light and dark. It's got an issue when it comes to exposure. As you can see here, things are much too dark. Obviously we're facing towards the sun, but it's not directly there, it's behind a building, but the camera has underexposed the scene considerably. Now you might be thinking I'm being a little bit cruel here, but the clips I showed you earlier on, I had to make a special effort to cut those out of all the footage I'd recorded, because those were the ones that looked decent. I've got to say a good 85–90% of stuff ended up looking like this, where a lot of the scene is much too dark. And watch what happens when I pan around to the right here. You get that darkness pop into the scene there because it saw the brightness in the background. So unfortunately, a lot of the footage that you'll see coming out of this camera isn't usable. It's a bit of a shame really, because it's so sharp and it takes decent quality images in every other respect, other than the fact that it gets the exposure wrong virtually all the time. I mean, look at this shot here. On the left you can see nice and clear and sharp and bright, the building in the background, but on the right, much too dark, can't see what's going on over there at all. And on the motorbike, as you can see here, it renders a lot of the footage completely unusable. You can't see what's going on at all. Now remember, this is a helmet camera. A head isn't going to point in the right direction all the time. It should be able to cope with conditions like this, changes between light and dark. If it can't, it's not a good helmet camera, and therefore this is not a good helmet camera. So that was the SJ2000. Bit of a disappointment, that one, because when it was good, but unfortunately it was bad too often, which makes it bad overall. So I don't recommend you get this one, but if you've got more money than sense, there's a link to buy one in the video description, but I wouldn't recommend it. Definitely not my favourite camera of the year. But that's it for the moment. Thanks for watching.